There's stuff in here that I never touched. Other stuff I use quite a bit. But when I got started, I had it wasn't this one because I was just a kid, but any good sharp knife is pretty much a minimum for getting started. Typically, we'll use a regular kind of carving knife. This is one of my favorites. It's maybe a $20 knife called a Whittling Jack. And this is a pretty good size. It's kind of not too big, not too little. That's your minimum tool. I mean, you can do a lot of carving with just a carving. Once you get you a good knife, you want to get it sharp. And then you'll probably want some kind of a smaller knife. We call these detail knives. And probably, yeah, something like, they can go pretty small. Right. So all we're talking here are sizes. You want kind of a medium knife. If you do a lot of rough work, you may want a larger knife. Some of the bird guys, when they're carving decoys and that kind of thing, you want kind of a bigger blade. But that's a good size. You can do a lot of carving, do anything you want with something like this. Then you'll graduate to where you want a finer tip. You want something that you can get into corners with a little bit better. So you might want to get you one that's just a smaller size of the blade. So this is another pretty good little knife. All right, so that's all you need. Class dismissed. No, just kidding. Just kidding. You'll want something to keep your knife sharp. And there's all kinds of stuff that you can use. This is called a strop. You can get them already made. I made this one actually here in the club. You can use a paint stick, a paint stirring stick. Go to Lowe's or Home Depot's, ask for a couple of those. Stop by the Goodwill and get you an old leather belt and just glue it onto your stick. You've got a strop. So this won't be a lesson on how to sharpen, but once you get your knife sharp, you want to keep it stropped up, and it just puts a polish on it and keeps it real sharp. It starts dragging a little bit, and you've seen guys sitting around, stropping their knives like this. So to go along with that, you'll want some kind of polishing compound or rouge, jeweler's rouge they call it. And it's kind of a, pardon me, it's kind of a waxy, almost chalky kind of thing. You just put that on your leather like that. Yeah, just like that. So
I've got that kit.
So once you get your knife, then you'll want a way to keep it sharp, and a strop is the way to do that. And then some kind of a rouge or polishing compound. You can use plain leather even if you want. Eventually you'll want maybe a sharpening stone, but as a beginner, bring your dull tools in here and whine about it a little bit. Somebody will sharpen them for you, and then you just keep them sharp with your strop. That's my recommendation. And then if you get interested in that, which you will after you start carving, you want to be able to sharpen all of your tools. There's plenty of people here that can teach you how to keep your tools sharp. How to repair damage if you drop them on a concrete floor, get a little chip out of them. Okay, so that is how to start with a knife. You pretty much, almost any kind of carving, a knife will come in handy. I carved for years with just a knife, And and I still go back to knife when I get in trouble. If I'm using the fancy tools and it's just not working out, I'll pick up a knife and fix it and then go on. So it's kind of what you get used to. While we're on the subject of knives, as a kind of a last thing, there's specialty knives that you may be interested in. This one is a curved knife or a crooked knife. You can see how it's curved around. If you're interested in carving spoons, and you do a lot of spoons, wooden spoons, or bowls, anything where you would be scooping out wood, you'll probably want to look at some specialized kind of tool to do that kind of work. So there's different shapes of blades. Personally, I like a flat. The sharp part of the blade, I like it just to be a flat surface. You can get the saber tips, they call them, that are curved, more like a kitchen knife or more like a pocket knife kind of thing. There's all kinds of different shapes. And the curved is a specific shape for specific cuts. Okay.
And how
So
would you sharpen that one? It looks like it'd be hard to strop.
it is. You can sharpen it, or you can excuse me. You can strop it just by following the curve. You can also use round dowels. You can like what I've got. I don't have it here, but just a dowel like a pencil, broomstick, anything around, and glue some leather or some suede around it. Put your rouge on it, and it fits inside that curve.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's all kinds of different ways that you can do that. Okay, so that's pretty much basics on the knives. Once you get used to using your knives and get a little bit comfortable, or maybe right away, it doesn't matter when you do it, you can start looking at gouges. So we're not going to talk about the big gouges today. I don't think that's probably what we're interested in.
One quick thing about the knives and stuff. When do you know when you want to go from, say, a palm type to a regular long handle type knife?
I'm sorry, say that again.
When you go from like the palm type of carving knife to a
You're talking about the
long
gouges
handle?
now?
Those are more gouges. Gouges are
Or knives.
Well,
I mean, there's
I-
no distinction between knives.
Okay.
your own gouges.
Maybe gouges, I guess.
A knife handle just fits your hand, right? You want one that'll fit your hand because when we start talking about gouges, we can talk about the different sizes of that. Is that what you're interested in?
Yeah.
Somewhat, yeah.
Okay.
And I'm not one of his sales reps, but Gene Graham makes carving knives.
He does make good knives.
Yeah, I bought 2 of his. And, yeah. And he also makes drops.
How much are those typically? 20, 30?
He gets $8. I think he gets $8.
Oh, I meant for the knives.
Oh,
Just
it
typically.
was 35, I think.
Okay.
And
Some of these cost me 12.
Right.
So 12. Yeah. I don't know that Woodland Jack. Look at the Smoky Mountain Knife Works, and you can get that for $12, $15 all day long. Next I'll look through. You'll have to modify the blade for carving a little bit. It comes with a secondary bevel. You'll take that off, but yeah, that's my go-to knife, and it was nice.
And my first knife I bought off eBay, and it was a flex cut.
I am not a flex cut fan myself.
Well, I
don't
probably
like
won't buy another one.
any of their stuff, but they're
That brand, that's where I just got my Jim recommended. Hummel.
Oh, yeah, okay.
those are good. Yeah,
I think
So
I did
the-
that a lot.
they've got a
Yeah. Yeah.
My good friend Randy threw this up on the table. This is a carving glove. It's recommended for beginners. For your left hand, it's chainmail or something. Kevlar keeps you from cutting yourself. I recommend keep your hand out of the way of the blade.
That's what he told me.
Yeah, but instructors like their students to have gloves. So I don't think that's essential, but a lot of instructors do. We're talking about tools, not safety. Yeah.
Well, sometimes talking about your tools is safety.
Right. Okay, so now we're ready to get carving, right? You can get various kits. I ended up getting mine pretty much one at a time. All of these, I think, came from Woodcraft Shop here in Franklin. They've got the Swiss-made brand, which I really like. They're ready to go right out of the box. It's called Swiss-made, and it's printed right on the handle. You can't go wrong, I don't think, with a Swiss blade. These are their Woodcraft brand knives. They're less expensive. They're acceptable. They're not as good, I don't think, as the Swiss brand. But I've got several of them, and that's what I started with, is buying these. And these will run you $30 to $60 probably a piece, maybe. You might find them a little bit better.
What size is that?
We're getting ready to go into that. We're getting ready to go into the different ones and how I accumulated my collection. I don't memorize the sweeps and the sizes, but we can figure out what these are. What I needed when I started carving was a gouge that's got a nice, half round sweep to it, and that was for cutting in, under the chins of people, cutting out eye sockets, that kind of thing. So this was one of the first tools I got, and it happens to be a number something. I don't know how this is a 9, I guess. Maybe a 6. This is a number 9 sweep. And I think that's pretty much a half circle. You know what I mean? It's a circle of a heart. But I didn't care. I mean, I wanted one about this big, and I wanted one that I could scoop out wood with. And that's how I ended up with this one. Okay. So that's the first one I got. Next, I wanted something to smooth those cuts off. After you use a gouge like this, it'll make a trough and a trough and a trough. And you can kind of, actually this is 3 or 4 tools in one, the way that I use it. That is, I can use it as a regular gouge and cut that out and make my troughs, get it as deep as I want. Then I can kind of turn it on its side and use the flatter part as a smaller gouge, and just use the corner of it to cut with. And so I've got kind of a round tool and a flat tool in one tool, but I really needed a flat tool. So I think the next thing I ended up with was a flatter sweep, and about the same size, because I was making people and heads and animals about this big. I wasn't doing the great big stuff yet. So I needed something to follow up with this, and so that's the next one I got. This is a number 7 sweep. You can see it's quite a bit flatter than the number 9. again, I could measure and tell you what the width is. They're sold by the sweep and then the width in millimeters. So it's like instructor will say, you need a number 11.7, or you need a number whatever, and it's the sweep plus the width. I don't care about the width because I'm going to match that to the carving. And again, you can use the edges, and you have almost two tools. You know, you can turn it up, you can get into corners, and that kind of thing. So, you know, I got a roundy one and I got a flatty one. All right. So then I wanted different sizes of these, and so I ended up getting a little more, you know, quite a bit smaller round one, and I got a quite a bit smaller flat one. And then I started collecting my round ones. This is a 9, and this one is an 11, this one is an 11. So you can see that they're pretty close. They got different sweeps, but they're all gouges along this line, right? Something that you can get in there and cut some wood out with. They're just different widths. So now I've got. I'm sorry?
Can I look at that one?
Yeah. And then I've got this original one, which would fall about right here. And then I've got that one, which would be the most narrow. So there's my sweepy ones. Then I've got my flat ones. I've got it. Start out with this one, and you can see I used it so much and sharpened it so much, it's just gotten smaller and smaller and smaller. It used to be as long as that one, and now it's gotten smaller width-wise as it's gotten smaller lengthwise. So I replaced it with a new one. Then I've got one a little bit more narrow, and then I've got a little tiny narrow one that's really good for detail work. So I've got my round ones, I've got my flat ones. And beginners love these. I rarely use them. These are called V tools, and they have a V shape. And they are good for cleaning up corners, for doing certain cuts. You can use them to put in hair texture on a carving, for animals or faces or whatever. If they have a beard, you put it on the face, right? Back of the head, let's say, that kind of stuff. I use them more for the flatness because these are perfectly flat on each side. You can turn it up on its side, really clean out a corner, that kind of thing. A little bit tough to sharpen, but I guess they're useful. So I've got a little tiny one, and I've got a great big giant. And that's it. I can carve anything you want. I do relief carving, deep relief, shallow relief, human bust, human full figures, knife or a ball and chain stuff, or a ball in a cage, and the old whittling tricks. Pretty much that's my kit with a big knife and a little knife. Get me started out. So that's, you don't need to get these all at once, and it's pretty rare to find something like that in one kit. They'll have some weird 2 or 3 of the stuff they can't sell in with the kit, to get rid of them. So I tend to just acquire them, one at a time, and that does it. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and this one now I pretty much can do without those sizes right there. These two are redundant. One or the other would be fine, but you know, you want a pretty small one, medium one, a big one. These two, like I say, I hardly ever, well, I use them to clean up and that kind of thing. So, yeah.
Do you have a sharpener? I know this is for knives and maybe some of these, but do you have another?
I do, but I hardly ever use it.
I'm just trying to figure out how to care for some of these.
The best, let's get this out just a second. There we go. What I did for a long time when I started using these tools, I would just sharpen them when I'd come to the club meeting, because I got a complete sharpening system up there. The Swiss tools will come sharp right out of the box, and all I have to do is just buff them. At home, I've got just a soft wheel. Look at that one up there. It's the floppy cloth wheel, muslin wheel. Put a little bit of rouge on it, turn it on, and just jute, dip them in water and then fine. I'm not going to go into sharpening and maintaining your tools.
No, yeah, that's fine. I just didn't know.
But you can do it all by hand, and if you decide to do that, it's handy to have a little somewhere. I don't think I've got it. Here's another safety thing I never use. You wear this on your right hand. It's for when you're pulling the knife towards your thumb. Don't pull your knife towards your thumb. So a couple of things. These are handy for me. I like using these diamond sharpeners, and it comes in a 3 fine and medium and coarse kind of grit. So that's a sharpening tool. But I've got somewhere. I guess I took it out of my bag. But you can get strops that are different shapes. That is, they'll have like little half-round grooves in them, and you just put your tool down in there. But you can, I just use this to strop them if I don't have my thing. You can also go sideways like this.
Okay.
So yeah, we'll have a strop get together. That's what we're talking about.
Perfect. I have one of those.
Yeah,
That's great.
something like this. I never use mine. It's a gimmick, I think, but beginners love them because
I use the backside
yeah.
for chip carving.
But they are sometimes helpful for like the inside, stropping the inside of your tool. You can easily make this at home. And then here's the flat strop that you typically use more than this. But you can get these that have a specific shape, like for the, for your V tools, that kind of thing. Yeah, that's what thanks. That's what I was looking for.
Now, I've been, watching some YouTubes and stuff like that, and I've seen a lot of them recommending for, when you're trying to use your stone to sharpen them, to do it this way.
Yeah, that's fine.
And as a woodworker, it just makes me cringe.
Why is that?
Because you don't use your chisels that way. You want to
That's
go
right,
this way with chisels.
Right.
And so I
But
was
you're
wondering.
what you're trying to achieve is that the best to show this, but I just use an old wooden mallet. But you know, if you were a real carver, you'd get the scientific plastic. You'd get 5 different weights of
As opposed
mallet
to a
and
fake
different instead of an amateur. Yeah, just a hobby carver. It doesn't. You can bang on it. You can bang on it with your fist if you're man enough. You know, but that's how you use these. Is, you know, like that. Although a lot of times now that I've got these, I'll use them by hand, and you can choke up on them and use them just like a palm tool, which just has a big old handle that you're not holding. So now, right, I've got a bigger gal, and I can work on the bigger, you know, log size stuff. But I followed the same principle when I assembled my large set. I want something flat-ish. I want something roundish. I want different sizes, depending on what I'm doing. So I've got like a small, medium, large. That's all I need. I don't need 5 of these. I don't need 7 of these. I don't need all the sizes in between. You know, I don't need a complete set of tools. I need the tools that I'll be using to take wood off to make what I want to make. So, yeah, that's my approach. Start out with a few. I start out with this one, then I got me a flat one, and then I started assembling the different sizes.
As a woodworking, if I can throw one thing in, is if you're using a mallet, always do it over a leg, never in the middle of a table. Because in the middle of a table, you get bounce. Over a leg, you transfer that pounding energy directly to the floor, and you will use half the energy using a mallet as you would in the middle of a table. Because the minute that you start getting bouncing, yeah, you lose.